Good evening. I promise not to go on too long and cause any uncomfortable feelings. Something you can maybe bear in mind for later. Typical reaction, I guess, when you have to be best man is to be a bit nervous about standing up in front of people, but once you get over that, you get into it and you relish the thought of fishing the dirt and all the crazy things that the groom's done throughout his life. And I'm okay with standing up in front of people, but what dirt could I possibly dish? What dirt could I possibly dish on a man who, for the last 20 years, has kept his loose change in a little pouch? A man once described as not tight with money, just careful. A man who would totally wash the squeaky out of clean. And a man so dependable that every father-in-law would be proud in the future of his well-planned family UK caravan runs. Those of you who know Richard like I do, know there's another side to him. Underneath this relaxed, steady persona lurks a different type of character. John and Margaret, I'm going to have to apologise at this point for what you're about to hear. They find it offensive and disturbing. Did you know Richard actually got a parking ticket once? Once, whilst on a drinking session in St Bede's with the boys, we set to trying to persuade Richard to throw caution to the wind and not go home and miss his family meal that night. He agreed. He went home 10 minutes later than he should have done. And once, whilst queuing in Asda Deli, he told the shop assistant he was ticket number 58. He was ticket number 61. You now know why they say lock up your daughters. As Richard said to you, we've been friends for a long, long time. Really, really good friends. And I suppose I first knew of Richard when I was 13. For the first few years, I didn't really know him very well. I just knew of this rather quiet, skinny lad. But someone that seemed to go by many, many nicknames, which I was a bit bemused by. But Rich, Ricardo, Tracy, Flocky, Clucky, Mac, just to name a few. Lots of nicknames. I'd love to tell you that it was the teenage girls in our year who had invented these names for him, but sadly I couldn't. It was the work of his friends, the young public school boys whom he enjoyed social intercourse with. While some of the boys at school were wondering about how we'd scale the girls' dormitory fire escape, pop in and see how they were doing in the night. Richard and his gang amused themselves on the dandy walk with such nickname frivolity whilst returning from Latin. My real friendship began with Richard when I was 17, and as I said, we knew each other for a while, became firm friends when we were 17, and shared a mutual passion for drinking pints and playing on the fruit machines. And looking back as we... Not listening, you want to Looking back as we matured into fine young adults, we had the bloody life of Riley. Without realising it, we were the most invincible sales force in the north. By summer, we sold ice cream, and by winter, we sold Christmas trees. And in between, we tipped up at York University, in the loosest possible sense, if you like, where we seemed to spend most of our time at Stonebow Snooker Club. It was great. We had our own queues and locker, so we were in there. Richard got me a start on the ice cream vans as he worked there before me. It wasn't long before I'd taken on his Frizzington run. It really was the best job ever. Turned up for work at 2 o'clock, out in your van, out into the countryside, back at 7. Used to go and play tennis for a while, roll into the pub till all hours, sleep off your hangover, back to work at 2. So it was really good. I recall one day, however, being back at base waiting for Rich to come back in his knackered old 1974 jalopy van, and he turned up looking rather worried, which was asked him what was the matter. And while selling his wares on one of Whitehaven's notorious council estates, he was lynched by a gang of youths. I think he thought his cash tip was in danger, but one of the youths simply said, "Excuse me, Mara, can we get his shoe off your roof?" And whilst on our ice cream rounds at different times, we both encountered a local woman who used to come out into the street in nothing more than a satin robe, and in a West Cumbrian dialect used to say, "Nut waffer." We spent many a night in the pub wondering what this was, and maybe it was a Second World War plane reference, or hopefully thought she was maybe suggesting she might be the little nut between our two wafers. We pursued this. We were disappointed to learn that she was actually after a nugget wafer. Richard has always been a keen sportsman and enjoys running, football, tennis, and still does. He's also been known to take his daredevil antics onto the ski slopes, and I've been lucky enough to spend some time abroad skiing with Rich. We've had some really good holidays. The last time was in St Anton in Austria, where myself, Rich and Clifton embarked upon a week's holiday. It wasn't long before Richard started flagging. Day 2, I think I seem to recall it was. Every night he used to say, "I can't do it, lads, I'm going to have to go lying tomorrow. You go and ski, I'll meet you on the slopes at lunchtime, I just need a rest." We just humoured him and got him another drink and said we'd talk about it anymore. All it took at 6:30 every morning was a gentle reminder to the Scotsman that the holiday was costing him £311 a day. And as the saying goes, he was up and off like a bride's night too. Friend asked me to say that those sort of sayings are for fun and not to be taken literally. Although a relative slow starter with the girls, Richard has certainly made up for it. With by the appointment of Brenda to his lovely wife. It's not always been so good, however, and I just want to share a very quick tale with you about one night we were out in York, and some of the boys in the Stag will have heard it. We were on a bit of a drinking session in York, and decided for whatever reason we'd go back and stay at my house. At the time, Emma and I lived in a 2-bedroom house in York, but that night there was no room at the inn. Emma had a friend staying over, so we were kind of compromised a little bit, but anyway, we sorted it out, and Richard went to sleep on the sofa. I toggled off to bed. We'd had sufficiently plenty, so off we went to sleep. 2 hours later, my wife's looking me in the ribs. "It's Richard, he's on the stairs." It surprised me slightly because it was a 2-bedroom house and the bathroom was downstairs. I said, "He can't be, he can't be." And he was, and we just heard this. "Young man, So I sent Emma out to investigate, only to see Richard tearing off back downstairs. And honestly, as true as I am here, we approached this in the morning with him and said, "What are you doing last night?" To which he calmly replied, "I think I was sleepwalking." You decide. You decide.